All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back on Real Boxing Talk on the Ultimate Sports Network. If you notice that there is one significant portion of the show missing, Mr. Farmer is on vacation, so to speak. He's on excursion, doing some things that he has to do for his own mental health and well-being. I laugh at that because he has no mental health, but that's another story entirely. Welcome, John.
Hi, Frank. Yep, pleasure to be here as always.
We're going to try and do this as free form as possible with some kind of plan as to what we're going into. If you noticed, we weren't here last week because some of us did not have internet. If anyone's paying attention if anyone's paying attention that owns an internet company and wants to make sure that my internet service is working correctly every day of the week, please let me know and I will pay you through the nose. But that's another story entirely. Okay, so what we missed last week, unfortunately, was our build-up to the Saul Canelo Alvarez championship fight with Billy Joe Saunders. Both had belts. Both were looking to retain their belts. Billy Joe Saunders was looking to put a stamp on a division that, quite frankly, no one has had a stamp on other than Canelo for quite some time. And the result, John, was
Canelo, baby. Canelo,
baby. Yeah.
You know, it was interesting, and we don't ever criticize the zone very often. Ha ha ha. But you know, I think the side story to me was more interesting was how they were getting so excited that Chris Mannix had Billy Joe Saunders ahead 5-2 through 7 rounds, and it was like, I'll tell you, I ended up writing an article just a few days ago about it, and I had watched 7 rounds, and I wasn't thinking for a second of changing my headline that basically said Canelo Alvarez defeats Billy Joe Saunders. I didn't think there was any way he was going to lose because Billy Joe Saunders is a boxer, as we know, and he was just hitting Canelo when he was with little pity-patty punches. They weren't doing anything to Canelo, and Canelo was winding up from San Diego to nail Billy Joe, and when he'd hit him, you could see there was a reaction. So yeah, Billy Joe had done pretty well in a couple of rounds. I had it I think it was 6-2 or 5-3, something like that. But it wasn't feeling like there was, like I said, there was any upset going on here, or 5-2 going to the 8th. So I had it reversed of Chris, who I like and respect, and he's funny and all that stuff. But their buildup, I don't know that they think people are going to stop watching. But we would never lower ourselves to stuff standards, right, Frank, and do something like that to keep the interest, right? So yeah, when he hit him with in the 8th round with the punch, see, I didn't realize that it had caused the damage that it did, you know, to the eye, and the whole caved his whole. And then when you saw the picture, you could see that his cheek was really caved in,
right?
And it was fractured in 3 places and all this. And then of course we have the big debate because they stopped it. Then we have the big debate about Billy Joe's a quitter. Real man wouldn't stop. You know, I always find that funny. All the internet warriors talking about what they would do. You get hit by Canelo, and you're like, it's nothing. Okay, but you know, Billy Joe Saunders put himself in that pickle in a sense because, let's be honest, and I like to be on this show. He's somewhat of an ass. Billy Joe Saunders. He's done some things out of the ring that are really, really make you think he's about 31 going on 5. He can say things that he says things that you go. And then he had said when David Dubois had his same issue and they pulled him out after another round that he never would have let that happen. I'm paraphrasing. You got to go out on your shield, blah, blah. And so that's where you can be careful what you say. They might come back and bite you, you know. So it did. But I mean, personally, I will say it right now. I didn't have any problem at all with the stoppage. You got your eye fractured in 3 places, and your corner decides that's it. That's it.
Yeah. Well, and I'm glad you touched on it because that was going to be something I wanted to get to later. That's fine. And these are people that are, again, internet trolls, and we're internet trolls. So let's be honest, that's what we do as well. But when he's, I wouldn't have got to amputate my arm, I'd still go out there and kick his ass. Like, yeah, right. Until you know that, and of course we use that well, if you've never been in the ring, but and then I heard other people saying, well, I've been in the ring and blah, 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 and it wouldn't stop me. I'm like, okay, there's a certain point where again, this is if you're winning the fight, you're in the fight, you're doing something, a lucky punch does something, but you still are the superior fighter and you have a chance to win the fight, or you're a big bomber and you have a puncher's chance to win the fight, by all means. But it's round 8 in a 12-round fight. And as you said, he's probably down 6-2, even if it's 4-4. You know, and I know you're not doing that math when you're making the decision if you're the fighter, but if you're the corner, you're thinking, at this point, from what I'm seeing, he's not going to win the fight anyway. That may be part of the decision. The full decision, the first thing is, my guy is in a position where he can be seriously hurt for life. So let's stop this right now. The second thing is, all right, I think we think the world is a Rocky movie. That cut me, Nick, I'll be okay. Like, no. Real fights don't happen that way. You know, you don't sit there and 17 knockdowns in a round and you still get up and win the round. It doesn't happen that way. And and I think that we're looking at it with the opposite of rose-colored glasses. It's well, if this guy would have done this, and if you've never been in that situation before, you don't know. If you've never been in a situation where I wouldn't have done this, and then it happens 3 months later, you go, oh yeah, I guess that would happen to me too. I'm not gonna, So that whole thing just blew me away. And for people to think that you have the guts to get in the ring with a guy that is one of the pound for pound best fighters in the world, and maybe could go down as one of the best fighters, in that realm, top 15, top 20, whatever, to ever fight. You're not suddenly going to get in the ring and go, I quit. I always thought that was funny with the Lomachenko fights, when the guy would put on the stool like, what a pussy. Really? Really? Is that what you think? Oh, he kept going. I don't know what he's doing. Okay. All right. So that's the element that we're dealing with. And we can get into a whole rant about a bunch of other stuff that spins off of that, whichever side you're on, but I'm not even doing that. But the idea that, you got a chance that you've been talking about. Like you said, Bill Joe Saunders has been hunting this opportunity down. Whereas other people are calling out Canelo too. He called him out and got him. Okay. And now you got what you got. And he got hurt. There's no shame in that. And there's also no shame in the fact that he's the one that got in the ring in the first place. So, and you can say, well, Canelo's, looking for another soft touch. Possibly. But how many other people are fighting Billy Joe?
Yeah, and he from what I read, people are like, his career is over. Now that's Kell Brook fought after the Golovkin thing had it happen again, a little less, but he fought again. His career is not over. He's got a cool $8 million in the bank after this fight. Yeah, okay, I know it's not relative. Your health is more important, blah, blah, blah. If I'm him, this is just me. I'm going, okay, well, I knew something like this could happen. I accepted the risk. Happily, I'm going to be fine. I got a lot of money. I should be set for a long time, if I'm not stupid. And I consider it a win, even though I lost in a lot of ways, obviously. And he'll fight again. He'll go back to England and fight again, Billy Joe. Canelo, the fight would have been better probably 3 years ago, because Canelo has just improved pretty much every fight. And
Right.
One of the major improvements, Frank, that people don't talk about is his defense is so much better now than it used to be. I mean, he's got this bobbing and weaving thing. He rarely stands right in the middle and just, he's this and he's quick, and he's a little guy, right? So he stays under a lot of these guys that are a little taller. And I think that's what's impressed me the most in this run that he's been on is, okay, you can argue all you want about the competition, and I and you and Frank, Charles, we want him to fight Charlo, and hopefully that happens next year. But as far as his improvement, I think he's in his peak right now, and I don't care who he fights. I don't see any of them beating him right now. I don't care. Charlo is the most athletic, the most talented, I think, even though a lot of people disagree with me. Fine. But Canelo is such a strong dude right now. And as a friend of mine, Mike said, Canelo doesn't say he's going to win. He knows he's going to win. And that's
right.
really, really important when you're that confident. It's not a cocky, egotistical thing. He just knows he's going to win, and that's just the way it is.
Right. Well, and you mentioned something that I think is very important. If you go back and watch the Canelo Mayweather fight, and now you start watching these fights. Now, granted, he was in with Mayweather, who was in control of the ring and the press conference and the lead up and all that. I get all that. It was Floyd's show. Hey, kid, let me show you the ropes and let me show you how it's done. I understand that. And now it's Canelo's world. Because we've asked this question and answered it any number of times. Who's the face of boxing, right? Who's boxing? Who's the first person everyone says? They pretty much always say Canelo Alvarez. Okay. So that part is obvious. What's not as obvious is, and again, it makes sense, but what's not as obvious is you watch the guy fighting Mayweather, and you watch the guy fighting Billy Joe Saunders or Triple G or whomever you want to watch that. Put him on film and go, this isn't the same guy.
Right.
Now, we all improve, or we should improve. We all evolve, which we should do, or devolve, depending upon if you have whatever I have. But anyway, you look at it and you go, all right, you've gotten better at what you do. But the leaps of his improvement are to the point where you go, wait a second, let's take another look at this guy. Because my initial reaction is, I remember the guy that fought Mayweather, who was so outclassed it wasn't even fun. To me, he wasn't ready. Now, he fought a hell of a fight, don't get me wrong. But he wasn't ready to fight that dude. Right, yeah. He was ready to fight that guy. But you would say now, and again, weight classes notwithstanding, Floyd in his prime versus Canelo in his prime, he makes it more of a competitive fight.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so when you've got these other guys, again, no offense to Billy Joe Saunders, anybody else, they've got to step up their game, or if their game isn't there, they've got to bring something else to the table. Right now, I don't see that anyone else has that. Again, I'd love to see him against Andre. I'd love to see him against Charlo. I'd love to see him against this guy, that guy, Benavidez. I'd love to see these guys get in the ring and figure out what's going on. But he has, and it's easy to say this and get out of the lexicon of what you're talking about. He has it, which can be a lot of things, and it's as a journalist, that's just a cheap way of not being able to describe anything. But he has it right now. And I don't know that no one else has it.
Yeah, I agree. And he does. And we were just talking off air, and I can't help it. It is, I think the first time I ever read when we were talking about, people don't know this. So we'll give him a little lesson on it, Frank. The it girl was Claire Bow. I know you know this, and that was back in the 1920s. And then, if you talk about movie stars, legendary movie stars, they have it. Like Valentino had it. Claire Bow had it. Errol Flynn had it. Ingrid Bergman. You go on forever. Canelo, the other thing that's really important, he has it. And he's not even called Sal Alvarez or Canelo Alvarez. He's just called Canelo.
Canelo, yeah.
And almost all boxing fans know that, know who he is. So that tells you how popular and also how polarizing he is. Back to the trolls you were talking about. The one thing that hurts him and will always hurt him, a lot of people don't like him for whatever reason. And they don't like that he failed the drug test, or he failed the drug test. He got caught with the tainted meat. Remember, before the rematch, made all kinds of weak excuses about all this, whatever. We've been over that. But he's never going to live that down for some people. I saw a bunch of them bringing it up. Suddenly he's breaking guys' eye sockets. What does that tell you? He's juicing. Right. Yeah. And then he's in VADA. Oh, that doesn't matter. It's all going to be fixed for him anyway. So I'm like, okay, boxing has a black eye, and boxing has done some bad things. So some people are going to think the worst of it. But when it comes to this, where there's no way, because he's already got caught once. He's got a black mark on his name for some people. They're never going to quite give him the credit, is what I'm trying to say here. Is there's always going to be, yeah, but, and that's unfortunate.
Well, okay, and I've got my background. I see Triple G in the background. Okay, so and not that I'm supporting one or the other, but when we look at the Triple G fight, for example, let's not look at the future, let's look at the past. And there's one of them that I think most everyone's going to say that he lost that.
Yep, for sure.
Okay, right. And he's bounced back from that. I'm wondering, and this is going to stray completely off the beaten path. This is why Charles is supposed to be here to rein me in. But this is, I'm going to ask this question in a way not to, you've been around boxing for a while. What percentage, because you brought up, what percentage of world-class fighters would you say are doing something, ingesting something, taking something that is not legal, that is against the rules, performing, enhancing, whatever you want to call it? Is it 3%? Is it 70%?
Yeah, I hate this subject because, right, I hate it because I'm a purist. I want sports to be above all that. I love all the, here we go again, back in the days when Babe Ruth was juicing up on booze, not steroids. I mean, he'd come into the locker room, right? He'd be staggering into the locker room, fall asleep for an hour, put on his uniform, and go out and hit 2 home runs. I mean, what advantage did he have being drunk? So I want sports to be pure. I don't want any referee. I don't want any officiating to be tainted. I don't want any points to be cut. I don't. But there are a lot of people who say that all sports is fixed. They believe it.
Yeah.
So I've heard people I respect, like Paulie Malignaggi, say that at least 20% of the fighters are juicing. That's what he says. I respect, obviously, because he's right there. He's right in it. I don't want to believe, well, I believe it, but then again, I don't know if I agree. I would just say, and again, maybe I'm naive, and the purist, the naive part and the purity part is coming in here. I want to say it's less than 10, but yes, there are some doing it. But that doesn't mean, that's the old thing where you say, Frank, you know, guilt by association. If you were at a meeting where somebody was talking about something and you were actually just hanging out in the back, not doing anything, you got to be totally agreeing with what's going on, even though you only went there because you were curious, you know? So it's the same thing. So if that small percentage is doing it, most people are going to say they're all doing it. Because, you know, there's been rumors about Joshua doing it. There's been all kinds of things about Manny Pacquiao years ago, you know, lots of talk about him. See, so it's reversed with Manny and Canelo. Manny was knocking out everybody, and then he suddenly wasn't knocking out anybody. So they're like, oh, okay, so he stopped juicing. Canelo now, he's won 3 of his last 4 fights by stoppage, where he'd been winning decisions before. So he's got to be doing something. He's breaking guys' eye sockets. See, in my opinion, it's bullshit. It doesn't mean anything. It's just that he's a hard puncher, and it's who he's fighting sometimes. You know, the guy before Billy Joe Saunders, everybody knew he was going to stop him. He didn't knock out Callum Smith. What does that say? Oh, he wasn't juicing before that.
Well, he didn't juice for that. And that was the point I was hoping to make, is that it's not 90%. And if Paulie says it's 20%, I'll go with that. I tend to think like you that it's lower than that. I was going to say maybe 5 to 10%, because I believe that most people are in sport to be in sport. And the accolades and the riches and all that come from that. So I'm kind of naive as well. I don't believe that it's, you know, there are that many people, and I carry this through my whole life. It's like, people aren't cheating. People aren't cheating me. People aren't talking behind my back about this. Now, they probably are, but I tend not to believe it. I treat people well. I'm assuming they're going to treat me well. I don't cheat. I don't juice. I don't do anything like that. So, and I'm just a normal guy. So if I'm a normal guy and I don't do it, why is somebody else going to do it? That's the way I look at it. So having said that, and having gone into that, I look at it and say, okay, tainted meat, this and that, whatever. I'm under the assumption that everything's okay until it's proven not okay. I don't believe in rumors. I don't believe in all that BS. I believe that if you have a legitimate beef, go after it and say, I think you did this wrong. Let's investigate it and figure it out. So to me, it's a speculation.
Yes.
So we look at it as it's just speculation, as far as I'm concerned. I'm not that naive that I don't believe that it happens sometimes. But I go back to the whole Barry Bonds thing. He still had to hit the damn ball.
Yeah.
You know, I don't care what you say, he still had to hit the damn ball. So all these things, you know, it helped. He still had to hit the damn ball. You know, I don't know what other part of the argument is for that. It's not like he sucked when he was in Pittsburgh. You know, he could play. He could play. And then suddenly, oh, look, you got bigger. Yeah, maybe. And I defy you to find anybody who's playing into their 30s or 40s that, or any person really, that has the same body they had when they were 22 years old.
Good point.
You know, and that's just the way it works. I mean, you grow, you mature, you know, certain things spread, certain things get bigger and smaller and larger and fatter. And as an athlete, you figure out how you train and what you do. We've got supplements, we have this, it's diet, it's like you said, you asked the question, we were kind of talking about this off there. You asked the question, could Babe Ruth play today? Oh, hell, he could catch up to 100-mile-an-hour fastball. Let's just say that, like I said, Babe Ruth in the offseason actually lifted a weight. Let's just say Babe Ruth drank light beer. He had gluten-free hot dogs. You know, let's just say they convince, hey, Babe, we're going to put you on a nutrition program. And you're going to face guys that throw 90, 95, 100 every day. Who's to say that Babe Ruth couldn't have caught up? We know as former athletes or athletes that don't athlete anymore that there are certain levels of competition that you have to face. And there are certain levels of competition that you're playing pee-wee ball to this, to that, and you stay at a certain level, bigger, better, whatever. And then it kind of filters out as you get to a certain level. I'm not at that level. I thought I was at that level, but I'm not at that level. My realization was when Ron Harper jumped over my head and jumped over my shoulder. I'm sorry, he didn't jump over my head, he jumped over my shoulder. Close enough. And I tried to dunk on Granville Waiters, who sadly has passed away. I had an opportunity to play in a great basketball setting one day when I was 25 years old or something like that. You know, knees were shot, but I still thought I could play. And I'm playing with great players who were NBA players. I got to play with 4 or 5 guys that were in the NBA, currently in the NBA, on the court at the same time. And I said, okay, whatever delusions of grandeur you had at one point, get rid of them right now. I know you think you could do whatever, but now you've seen guys that can do things that you can't do. And some of them had successful NBA careers, some of them didn't. And you went, wow, they were so much better than I was, and they weren't even upper echelon NBA players. Maybe I could have played in CK. Wow. So there's that reality, exactly. So I don't believe that it's and again, the juicing may help. I don't know. It might. I don't know that there's anyone that says, okay, it's going to take me from being maybe a top 50 fighter to a top 5 fighter. I don't think it can do that. I could be wrong about that. I haven't done any studies. But I don't think it can do that. I think it may take you from being number 3 to number 2 and all those other things. But even that, I'm not sure about. If you don't have the natural talent, it doesn't matter. Now, recovery, the ability to train harder, longer, faster. Yeah, I get that.
That's it.
I don't know. But I don't know that is the entire package either. You know, the things you do with that. You look at I was watching something and bodybuilders came on, and they were from holding their products of their supplements, and they're ingesting all these big powders and pills and all that stuff. First of all, I can't stand pills, but I saw them ingesting all this stuff and went, okay, all they do is supplementing or replacing eating an orange for having this powder or whatever. I know I'm oversimplifying, but that's it. So what's the difference? I'm not advocating juicing or anything like that, but what's the difference? You know, if it's something that occurs naturally or didn't that, I know I went on a long rant, but there's not a third person here to stop me. There's that, okay, what's the difference between Canelo at fighting Mayweather and Canelo fighting now? Can you say that's because of juicing?
No. He could have
No,
been,
I don't
okay.
think so.
Yeah, let's go with that hypothetical and go with like a number of people think, say Canelo's, let's just say that he's juicing right now. I don't like saying it, but let's say he was
Right.
juicing back then. Mayweather would have kicked his butt the same way.
Anyway, right. Yeah.
Would have made no difference. He'd have kicked his butt the same way. That Canelo is a different Canelo. Well, that was the major point that you made that I like was, and I said that pretty much too. The Canelo that fought 40 minutes to do it. Canelo, right. Yeah, now is a different animal altogether, and that loss was the best thing that ever happened to him. He learned, and he has even admitted that afterwards. He learned so much from fighting Floyd Mayweather. He even adopted some of Floyd Mayweather's moves after that. So that says a lot there. So yeah, no, and as a side note, I say Babe Ruth, he could have played nowadays because he was a great athlete. But remember, Babe Ruth had to face spitballers and all these kind of guys in those days. No helmet on, not that that matters. But I think the fastest pitcher in those days, Frank, if I remember, was probably Walter the Big Train Johnson.
Yeah. And
he faced him. I don't know. He didn't face Grover Cleveland Alexander very much, but and then he didn't face a guy I'm reading about right now by the name of Christy Mathewson, who was one of the greatest pitchers who ever lived, Big Six. So, but these discussions about errors are always so, in a sense, convoluted, because you look back at that time and you go, wow, it was sure different back then compared to the way things are now. But it is fun to talk about. But Canelo is in his prime right now, and your point's a valid one. Whatever he's doing, if he's doing something, and I'm not gonna cast that on him because I don't have any proof that he's doing anything. Right. So why do I want to do that? That's not fair. I wouldn't want somebody to do it to me. Exactly. So I'm not gonna do it to him. I'm just gonna say that I think he's fighting extremely at a high rate right now, and there isn't anybody out there in the 168 division that I think could beat him. Then there's the light heavyweight guy, the monster up there waiting for him, and that fight might happen.
Well, and it's funny that the question, and we brought Pacquiao into this as well, and it's like, okay, well, he went from being, a small guy to a smaller big guy. The natural thing is to say, can I make 135 again? I don't want to make 135. I can't. It's again, as I'm growing and getting older, it's harder to make this weight. It's harder to make 140. It's harder. It not only is it harder, it's not healthy. Right. It's going to be tough to do. So I give credit to guys that fight at one weight class for 10 years. And if we go back and we look at things, we look at the evolution of some of the great fighters of any era, of any weight class. Most of them, as they got older, moved up in class. Now, maybe that's where the money was. There's always that possibility. But unless you were, let's say, Evander Holyfield goes from light heavy cruiser to heavyweight. Not a big difference in poundage for him. And maybe, again, as we've said about the light heavies and the cruisers for some time, he's chasing money. But, or a James Toney, who maybe, and I see James Toney out there on some of these social media things. Seems like a great guy from what he's putting out there, but he couldn't stay at middleweight. There's no way. He tried, but he couldn't do it. Sometimes you just can't make that weight. Again, Mayweather didn't start as a welterweight, right. And he didn't look to be a big guy at welterweight, but it's hard to keep making that weight. Ali wins the gold medal in light heavy, not heavy. People don't remember that sometimes. Right. So, we all go De La Hoya. You look at some of these fights and some of these guys and go, wait a second, Duran. We covered the Iran Barkley fight. If you would have went 15 years before that and said Roberto Duran's going to fight Iran Barkley, you go, at what weight? Huh? Duran's a lightweight. He can't carry that weight. Well, there was a few months before the Barkley fight where he should have been fighting heavyweight if he was going to fight. You know, so, and that's also due to inactivity and some other things in lifestyle. We won't get into that. But the idea being, you know, as we get older, you know, I remember I am nowhere near my high school weight or 2 years after that. And it's not even close. You know, could I get down to that weight? Sure, if I cut off a leg. It's not possible. You know, even in the best shape of my life, I'm not getting back to that weight. It's just not possible. I mean, I could, but I'd starve myself and barely be able to move around. You know, it's just not what it is. And I think we tend to forget that. Oh, look, his head's bigger. Like, what do you want? You know, he's 30 years old now. He's not 20 years old or 18 years old or whatever. You know, the only few fighters I can think of are Guayo, that was able to fight pretty much in the same class. And even then, I don't know if that's true. Let's start way up.
He moved up.
He was still, he moved up. Yeah, you know, but he did, you know, I'm thinking like didn't move 3 or 4 classes. But yeah, but the same thing though. It's not, I gotta get off this because I'm gonna keep rambling about it. But it's one of those things where we don't get, we always look for something to blame. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
Instead of giving guys credit to where they should be or what they've done. And I don't think there are two extremes here. We give Canelo too much respect because of what he's done, and maybe it's not because of who he's fought. And then the flip side of that is we take away that respect because of who he hasn't fought, and maybe we think he's juicing, maybe we think he's doing this, maybe we think he's doing that. The middle ground is he's good for boxing. He's been a good boxer, and give him credit for what he's doing.
Yeah, you know, I agree. We live in a very petty society, and this is what Barry Bonds wasn't allegedly doing petty. I'm saying, and also you have to remember too, and I know you know this, Frank, that Barry Bonds was loathed by a lot of people, and sure. I was not a big fan.
Deserved.
Right. I was just going to say, I was not a fan of his personality. I thought he was a class A jerk. Again, just class A ass like Billy Joe Saunders. So whenever he got criticized, kind of liked it. But as a baseball player, when he was playing for the Pirates, like you said, back to this just for a second, the guy was a stud. Everybody knew it. And you grow into your body is what I know what you're trying to say as you get older. Hell, me too. I've gained 40 some pounds since I was in high school. I was real thin, obviously, but I gained 40 pounds, and I could gain a lot more if I didn't walk all the time and do all that kind of stuff. Sure. But you do. Everybody puts on weight. Now, was Barry, because you don't like him like me. I didn't like him. I have a hard time keeping that out to say, no, he wasn't doing anything. Maybe he was, but we're never going to know whether he was. Mark McGuire, Sammy Sosa, you know, they're not in the Hall of Fame. That's another show. But it's just the suggestion and the rumors and are all there. There were even rumors about my paisan Piazza that he was doing something and he made it into the Hall of Fame. So it's hard to be so negative on somebody based on rumors. That's what I don't like. One real fast one too, because we've talked about this a lot. Too bad Charles isn't here. Juan Manuel Marquez. He was rumored to have juiced big time before the last fight with Manny Pacquiao, where he knocked him out because he had a lot of acne on his back, and that's one of the signs of steroid use. But if you ever watch any training film of Juan Manuel, he was practicing that right hand all training camp. He was working on that right hand, waiting, because he knew he had fought Pacquiao so many times. He knew that Pacquiao was very aggressive and he was going to come in, and if he just was timed it just right, and he did. So do we want to take that incredible victory away from Juan Manuel Marquez based on acne on his back? That's what I'm saying. That's not the, you don't, people are going to do it because, like you said, they're always looking for something. The Pacquiao fans, fine. They're very biased. It's like politics. People are very biased in a lot of ways, right? They only see what they want to see. But in reality, you can't take that away from Juan Manuel Marquez. That was a great victory, and it was a definitive one. So I'll never throw that in there. We talked about Aaron Pryor and Alexis Guerrero, remember, with the give me the bottle I mixed.
Yeah.
No, not that one, the one I mixed. Well, there's no proof. I mean, it's suspicious, yes. But was that a fantastic victory for Aaron Pryor? Hell yes.
And of course, what you add into that is if Marquez had been soundly thrashed by Pacquiao in the previous fights, and then suddenly he turns around, okay. But, you know, he got a draw out of the first fight when he got knocked down 147 times in the first round. So he pitched a shutout the rest of the fight.
Yeah.
Did he start juicing after the first round? No. You know, was Arguello just beating the snot out of Pryor before the mix thing? No. See, and that's the context you have to put these things in. Were they doing well? And again, going to the Barry Bonds thing. If you go back to Barry Bonds' Pittsburgh, he just came off an MVP season.
Right.
Well,
yeah.
Okay. And would any team in all of baseball won a Barry Bonds after that season? Yes. You know, again, PR nightmare, but a great player. So, and the whole arrogance thing is, you know, when Bobby Bonds, who should have been one of the best all-around players in baseball history as well, his dad, and Willie Mays is your godfather. Yeah, I got a little struck myself. Sorry, I feel a little entitled too. So yeah, again, I didn't like the guy, but I enjoyed what he did. And again, you say the same thing about Ali. Ali, how he did, he's just a puffed up lightweight. Yeah, you get in the ring with him. You see what happens. He doesn't stand out a bit. Okay. Then after the layoff, he laid in the wood. Like, go ahead and hit me. I'll hit you back. Wow. He's just going to dance. So we make these perceptions on, and some of it's on what we see. But we say, this guy can't do this because I haven't seen him do it before. He can't take a punch. He's a tough guy, and I'm not going to disparage Mike Tyson at all. But when someone finally stood up to him, oh, now let's make him fight. If you get Mike Tyson in a fight, you've got a chance. But who was willing to get in a fight with Mike Tyson until Buster Douglas, who had nothing to lose? And again, you saw the Tony Tucker fight with Buster Douglas, who went, no, ain't gonna happen. So that's the fun of this, I think.
Yeah.
And I know we went all the way around the block on it, but that's the fun of it, is that you don't know in this particular sport what is going to happen until both guys and the referee step inside the ring. Because there's no script. There's no bailout. There's no, I hit it in the rough, I'm going to take a drop and make a better shot. There's no miracle play. There's no way I'm going to hit 27 aces in a row. You just have to get in the ring and hit and be hit. The better man wins virtually every time. Now, doesn't mean the decision's going to go your way. That's another story entirely. But the better man wins. And that's the thing I thought was funny about this when you say, well, or people would say, well, Billy Joe Saunders didn't want to be there in the first place. Bull crap. There are no easy paychecks in boxing. I don't care what you say. There are no easy paychecks in boxing. So, okay, I'm going to ask this question. And this is something completely off the cuff as I was thinking about it. Yeah, again, we talk about the same core group of people. I know that.
Right.
But
heard that part.
Who are the 5 or 6 guys that it takes some serious cojones to say, I'm going to get in the ring with this guy? Maybe not just because they're going to knock you out, but the outcome is pretty much decided before you step in the ring. Who are the 5 guys who you go, man, I really have to be on my best behavior to take on that guy?
Well, there's two of them that popped in my mind immediately in the welterweight division is Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford. Both of them in their fights, they usually takes Terrence a little bit to go, but he knocks people out dynamically. And
Right.
Errol Spence looked totally like a different guy against Danny Garcia in the sense he boxed more, but he was like a quiet assassin. That was the way I saw him. So you know that when you get in there against those two guys that you're going to get punished. That's the way I look at it. And see, now Canelo has gotten to that point now where because of what he's doing, people are like, and then Bitabia, the light heavyweight, is a beast. He was who I alluded to earlier, and he's a scary guy. And I know I'm leaving some off. In a way, is a scary guy. You don't get called the monster for nothing. You got to have some big ones, right? Some big ones to get in there with him. And then any of even though I wouldn't call it very talented, but the heavyweights are big dudes who throw bombs. Look at Chisora. Would you want to be on the receiving end of one of those shots from Chisora? No. So that takes, even if you're a big guy like him, Parker said, he hit me with a shot right here in the ear. I mean, these are 240, 50-pound guys. Joshua, whatever we call him, robotic, whatever, he punches hard. Wilder, even with all the complaints, that right hand, I don't want anything to do with that right hand.
I don't want to do that, right.
Right? I keep that right hand about 2 miles away from me. I don't want anything to do with it. So there are a number of them that are in that league. Like years ago, it was the Beast Mugabe. Nobody really wanted to fight him.
Oh, yeah, right.
And then Marvin Hagler picked him apart and stopped him, just like the Marvelous One used to do. So Danny Little Red Lopez, guys, I remember used to hear guys like, oh, God, I'm worried about that right hand, So that's why boxing, I think that's why, this fits perfect, Frank. You did it again with your segue. I have to say that. I think that fits perfect with what we started about with Billy Joe Saunders and quitting, or whatever you want to call it. I'm not going to say quitting. I'm going to say his corner decided that no, you're not going blind in this. I'll say that.
Yeah.
It takes more guts to be a fighter on any level than any sport, to me, easily. It's hard to be a bullfighter. I get that, because a bull might gore you and all that kind of stuff, whatever. But as a boxer, when you got another man standing right in front of you, throwing punches, not to pity pat you most of the time, he's trying to knock you out. That is tough. And it takes major, big city like cojones to get in there and be a professional fighter. And that's why it's so hard, back to what we brought up in the beginning, when somebody says, he's a quitter, he's a baby, so I think it's that extreme. You got all this, and then when one of them, to those internet warriors, quits, it's now real quick though. Do some of them quit sometimes where you go, I remember years ago, surprised me when Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. quit on his stool. I never thought I'd see that.
Yeah, that's not going to happen, right?
And he looked like it was more like a Duran thing, where it was like, no, Moss, I don't want it.
I don't want to do this anymore, right?
Right. Duran was another one that when I was watching him at 135 pounds, literally saying, I wanted to put the guy in the morgue, I never thought in a million years he'd walk away from Sugar Ray Leonard. Now, that wasn't a courage thing. I think that was more, if you want to make a psychological argument, that might have been more of a diva thing. Like, you know what? I don't want to do this. He's not like he's hurting me or anything, but he's embarrassing me. Right?
Yeah.
That's a different
but
animal.
Even then,
right? So, so this equates in a way that with boxing, they're never supposed to say no. I mean, basketball player hurts his ankle, unless you're Willis Reed, bump, never go way back. And they do come back. Larry Bird got hurt in that game, fell on his face, dramatically runs back out on the court. I mean, they come back, but that's different. That's not getting hit here. And you're thinking, right back. You're trying to fight Canelo, your eyes like this, with one eye. You really want to fight him with one eye? No. So,
and let's add into that again. Larry Bird bounces off the hardwood, gets back up. chances are good he's not going to bounce off the hardwood again. You know,
Right.
Willis Reed has the bad foot, the bad ankle. Okay, you know, and they always say in the you know, chances are good he's not going to re-sprain this or redo that or whatever. Canelo's still hitting you in the face.
Right.
You know, you suffer an injury, it can be reinstalled. Boom. Well, that hurt. Boom. Stop hitting me in the boom. Ah, all right, I had enough.
Yeah, well, because there'd be a bullseye right there. You know, he'd be
Right.
saying that I'm just going to aim right for it. That's boxing. The guy gets a
Right.
cut, you aim at it.
Yeah, you're playing, you know, baseball, and you cut the bag wrong, and you sprain your ankle. You're probably not going to do that again. You probably should have done it in the first place. That's my opinion. That's what started out. But you probably shouldn't. You won't do it again. You know, you're up at bat, you get hit in the shoulder. They're not throwing at the same spot again.
Right.
You know, he hit me in the shoulder 3 times in a row. Not going to happen. You know, so yeah, or it shouldn't happen.
Point. Yep. Yeah, that's exactly the point about boxing. Boxing is the ultimate, and I think that's why it's stayed around all these years, because it is in a sense the ultimate. All right, mano a mano, you against me. Let's see who's better. Not necessarily who's tougher, because I will say they are both tough, no matter who you are. Even, and just real quick, even going all the cards that I used to go to years ago, even watching the guys that were just starting or whatever, one that took guts to get in there and fight another man. And I saw brutal fights in 4-rounders. I saw some of the best 4-rounders where all the crowd was doing was oohing and on. These young kids in their 20s are getting hit, you know, and when you're that close, Frank, when you're within 5 or 6 feet of the action, doesn't matter if it's Canelo or a 4-rounder, like I said, between 2 guys that you've never heard of. That sport, this sport that we love, we talk about all the time, is a brutal ass sport. Brutal. So it's that love-hate thing with boxing, but I would never, and we've said this, disparage anybody who has the guts to get in there. And that's why, back again real quick, this whole thing with Billy Joe Saunders and everything, stupid.
Yeah. I'm going to make a comparison that most of our audience is going to say, how the hell did he come up with this? Which is what they do anyway. But we go to, these 2 things probably shouldn't go together, but it illustrates the point. If you watch the movie Victor Victoria, which I thought was a great movie, but there's a scene where James Garner and Julie Andrews go to the fights, and everybody in the first 3 rows or 4 rows, whatever, has a newspaper with them. And it's like, oh, here it comes. And you cover up a newspaper, and here comes the blood coming out of the ring all over people. You know, that's what it's like. You know, we've made it nice and simple for us to watch it on TV, because the ring camera doesn't really show that from that angle. And then we see it from further away. So we give that nice polished telephoto lens look, and we don't see the brutality of what's going on. And so we think, well, yeah, I said jokingly back in the day, I'm bigger than Mike Tyson. I get in the ring with him. No problem at all. He's not going to kill me. You know, how long can a coma last? You know, and it's the idea of I'd survive, I think. Now, I know better than that now, and I was joking about it then. But if you were going to say, Frank, here's $1 million. Go in and have Mike Tyson beat you up for about 85 seconds. Yeah, okay. I might get a punch in here and there. And then I'm not going to feel more than 1 punch anyway, because it's not going to take that much to knock me out. So big deal. And I'll wake up 6 months later, cash a check, and I'll be okay. But the reality of that is, that's not what it is. It's the repeated opportunity of getting hit or hitting. So as we were talking about, okay, so you talked about a few guys that people don't want to get in the ring with because it could be hazardous to your health. Which of the few guys are out there that you don't want to get in the ring with, or may not, because you can't win the fight? Maybe they're not going to brutalize you, but their skill is so much better. And we've mentioned for the last few years, Lomachenko, who I still think might be one of those guys, but that didn't happen. when you get two rounds in the fight, you're going, ain't no way in hell I'm beating this guy. What 3 or 4 guys are out there? You go, yeah, he's just that good.
Well, the Lomachenko conqueror, Teofimo Lopez, is just, I think he's like Canelo in a sense. He's just going to keep getting better and better. I don't see anybody beating them. He's going to move up. And then the 2 guys we mentioned again, I think Errol Spence is pretty much unbeatable in a lot of ways right now, if he's really what he is. And Crawford might be getting to the point where he might be beatable soon. But Golovkin was one of those guys a few years ago, and he's one I should have mentioned was scary. People did not want to fight him. And that's the tragedy of Golovkin is when he was in his prime, none of the top guys really wanted to fight him. That hurt him a lot. Now they all want to fight him because he's almost 40 and he's slowed down and he gets hit a lot and all that. So that's boxing again, brutal. The minute you drop a little, they're like, yeah, now I'll fight you. Oh, now you'll fight me. I remember another brutal puncher, and I just saw this, I got to throw this in, was Bob Foster. He was another scary guy that would, people, light heavyweights would fight him with no problem, but light heavyweights like, oh, geez.
Stay away, right?
Yeah, I don't want to fight this guy. When we mentioned Canelo, I'm trying to think of, I think Tyson Fury, a lot of heavyweights would say, I can't beat him. He's too big. I might, if I catch him, but I got to catch him first, and God knows what I got to go through to catch him. I don't think they feel they got a chance. Joshua is damaged goods in a sense as Wilder. So I think somebody would fight them thinking maybe if I clip him, if I could hit him on that same spot that Andy Ruiz hit him, maybe I'll be fortunate. But as far as, and this is more of a technician thing. And this is Charles's forte. You know, he'd be talking about all his crafty guys. For most of the fights that I saw, got to do that as a tribute to Charles. Most of the fights that I saw Floyd Mayweather in, and again, this is right up Charles's. Charles could talk about this more. Was you could see after a round or two that the guys didn't have a chance. You know, like the last fight, Andre Berto. You knew going in he probably didn't have a chance, but I mean, it was amazing when he fought Robert Guerrero, who was a good fighter, but it's that level thing. And then he went to war with Marcus Mayorga. Remember, he went to war. Mayweather did that. But then he said, okay, in rematch, I'll just fight like me. And he won easy. So he was one of those guys, too, that I think you could pretty much figure. But going back for a while, before he got older, Sugar Shane Mosley was dominating where you would see in a round or two. So I think they have these levels for a while. Oscar De La Hoya did that for a while when he was skinnier and in shape and really into it, where you'd say, oh, this fight, one round in, you'd go, the fight's over. But nowadays, I'm missing a few, I think, but I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Well, you know, we've got the 135 pounders and the 140 pounders. The only one that gives the Rougarou a fight is Josh Taylor. Before that, nobody had even basically won a round against him. So, you know, you know what I think it is real quick, Frank, is, and I got one more thing to say, but there's just levels like we talk about. So if you're here and you're fighting a guy that's above you, you're going to have to catch some luck to beat him. And real fast, one more brutal thing about boxing. The most brutal thing I ever saw was Victor Ortiz when he got his jaw broken against Josesito Lopez. And I think that plays into the whole thing about people, because, you know, we all loved us Ali fans loved Muhammad Ali got his jaw broke against Ken Norton in the second round or later in the fight. Nobody seems to know for sure. But Ali finished the fight. That's Muhammad Ali, though. The point is when I saw Victor Ortiz, and he had quit supposedly in another fight with Mayorga, right? You remember that?
Right.
When they stopped the fight in his corner, it was at the Staples, the crowd booed him like there was no tomorrow. Okay, fine. That's boxing again, what we were talking about. When he came walking down the stairs and he walked right past me, I was sitting right at the end in the media row. He was 2 feet from me, and I looked, his jaw's hanging like this.
Yeah.
He's got a towel here.
Pouring out.
Blood is just dripping on the floor.
Dark blood. Yeah.
Exactly. And I'm like, oh, and I looked around and I wanted to say it. I wanted to say, oh, any of you could take this? He had it broken 2 places. He was in the hospital for over a week. You say what you want about Victor Ortiz. He's got all kinds of problems now. We know it's another story. But I'm not gonna. I wrote an article defending him after that fight because I thought, come on, people, you don't know. Please don't go there. So that's again, that's just back to the brutality of boxing. It is the highest in that area, in that realm. And until you really see it, like you said, it's not Rocky. It's reality. You're right. That dark blood.
Yeah.
Never seen that like that. Like when he walked away, I looked down and there was a puddle of blood. Right.
Yeah. Like, did that come out of a human being? I mean,
exactly.
I didn't know that my blood was. That's fresh from the heart, right out. Like, oh my goodness, yeah, that was scary.
Yes,
that was really scary. And again, you had to be close enough to see it. But okay, before I jump to something else, I'm going to throw one in there that people didn't. The guy, Livingston Bramble, was one of those guys who went, I don't care what this fight is for. This dude's insane. Why would I get in the ring with this guy? He's insane. I don't know, or Andrew Galata. I don't know if he knows the rules. And he's a big dude who can punch.
True.
That's not a good combination.
That's
Why
scary.
would I take this fight?
That is scary. Yeah, that's scary.
You know, to be as delicate as possible. My wife doesn't want me to take this fight. Let's just put it that way. You know, my wife doesn't want me to fight Andrew Galata. So, but there are, you know, so we look at the guys that are just, and ladies as well, that are just devastated. Again, we usually throw, because we're, you know, not 22 years old anymore, we usually throw some form of historical reference into this. When we talk about pound for pound, come up with a couple of fighters that just were so talented that no one wanted to. I mean, there was a foregone conclusion that they got in the ring. It was pretty much over. You know, the Sugar Ray Robinsons were over, whomever. You know, there's no point in fighting this guy. Can you think of just like 3 or 4 guys that went, there was no point in fighting? And maybe that's why they didn't get fights.
You talk about historically. Did you say historically in boxing? That yeah. Well, when he was in his prime, Joe Louis. I mean, the fights were pretty much over before they even started. I mean, a lot of guys admitted afterwards, I don't want to fight him, but I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to fight him. He only lost 3 times in 71 fights. He was like that. There were a lot of guys who didn't want to fight Rocky Marciano because they knew that he was going to brutalize you. You know, I hope I'm answering your question. Historically, for a while, Joe Frazier looked like nobody could beat him back in the early 70s, and it had to be Ali, and then he beat Ali. So, you know, I think for a while they're on such a pedestal, and then that's why when they lose, like Lomachenko, you're shocked,
right?
Because you don't think that there's anybody out there that can beat them, right? And so they always say there's somebody out there who has your kryptonite. And it's pretty much true. Now, Floyd Mayweather, a lot of discussion that he lost, was it Castillo, earlier in his career? Well, he got the decision. I watched the fight. It was close. But I can't think of any other fight that was like that. So, you know, Floyd was Floyd. So I think the point is that all fighters have a point where you just don't think, not all, the champions that you really know are good, like Canelo. We can't see Canelo, back to him again, since we're doing this segue thing. Can't see him losing to anybody right now. Maybe the light heavyweight, but he's in that point. Back to my guy, got to throw him in there. Andre Ward, for a while, when he won the Super 6, everyone was saying there's nobody that can beat him. So he had to move up for other challenges, and that's what they do. But you know, right now there's a handful of guys that, and this is going to sound really bad, but it's true. When I'm going to write an article about it, I already have the first paragraph written or the headline written. I'm that sure that they're going to win. Right. Now, there's guys like Andy Ruiz who might do something to upset it, and I'll go,
Right.
damn, I had such
What
a
in
great
the hell?
paragraph. And he messed it all up. But that's what makes sports so fantastic, Frank, as you know. In every sport, upsets happen. And like you said, Buster Douglas, like the 1988 Dodgers beating the invincible Oakland A's is always one that I'll never forget. I think it was 88. So, you know, that's why I love sports, because every now and then you'll get a surprise that you didn't see coming.
Well, I look at it, and it's a perfect example of when people say, you know, why do you watch to the final buzzer? Because unless it's a basketball game where they're up by 37 with 2 minutes left, you know, my perfect example is the Super Bowl where the Patriots beat the Falcons. I have yet to see the second half of that game, because that game was over. I mean, over. There was no way in the world the Patriots could win that game. The Falcons were dominant, and I had other stuff to do. Like, I got to go to work. I got to prepare for this. This game is done, book it, finished, over with. And I came back to the Sports Center or whatever that night and went, huh? What? Are you kidding me? There's no way. The playoff game where Reggie Miller hits, what was it, 9 points in 3 seconds or whatever the hell it was. The Knicks had that game won. How in the world? And when you see the replay, though, I've seen it. It doesn't make any sense. So, you know, bottom of the ninth, down by 4, win by 6. You know, there's no telling. And in boxing, it's the ultimate, because every fight can end that way. Every fight can win that way. One lucky punch, or one good punch, or one guy getting overconfident, or whatever. You close the door, or your door gets closed on. And I think that's the beauty of boxing. All these things that, you know, they have this thing on ESPN now, the bad beats thing and all that. All these things that are possible, but not probable in other sports, are possible and probable in boxing. You know, the Mike Weaver, John Tate fight. Was it John Tate?
Yes.
Yeah. It's like
15th round knockout.
How is this possible? It's not. This fight had gone one way the entire fight, and I think, and I have to go back and look at it, the entire fight, and then I'm still here. You didn't get me out of here. The clock hasn't ran out yet. Boom, done. Huh? What did I just see? What I thought I just saw? Melvin Taylor.
Yeah.
Against was Barrera? No, that's not right. Was that it? Marco Antano Barrera? Was that the fight?
Mildred Taylor and Mark. No,
that can't be right.
Taylor and Julio Cesar Chavez fight getting stopped.
Chavez, that's what. That's
yeah,
what,
you're talking about, yeah.
That's the fight. Yeah. And everyone, you had this fight won. And then there's a stoppage at the end. Now you can say whether the stoppage should have happened or not. That's another story entirely. Kudos to Richard Steele for doing what he does. But you know, but wait a second. That and we've talked about that in other shows. Like Richard Steele is concerned with how much time's left on the clock. He's concerned about what's happening in front of him. So I don't even have a problem with the stoppage. I have a problem with being in a position for there to be a stoppage. You know, but you know, that's I think the beauty of the sport is that it can turn on a dime at any time. You know, you're watching guys that aren't in the fight, and you say that one lucky punch or a puncher's chance or whatever it is. You know, when we watched the Graziano Zale fight, I wasn't sure how that. I mean, it was only 3 rounds, but this could have ended at any point during the 3 rounds.
That was them.
That's one of the best things I've seen in a long time. And when we paired it with the Hagler-Hearns thing, again, it could have ended any other time during those 3 rounds. That might be, to me, one of the favorite things we've done. It's like this could have happened anytime. This punch here, a misstep there, you know, a little bit of balance here. That's what this sport's all about. So, kind of the reason why I brought that up, were there any guys that we didn't, you know, people didn't want to get in the ring with, A real boxer's like, no, I got a shot. Now if you're, the 18th ranked flyweight, you're not fighting the second ranked cruiserweight. I understand that. But it's the idea of, and that's also the beauty of it being the weight classes. I still wish they get that straightened out, but it's the idea of, I got a chance. Let's get in the ring and fire it up. So in conclusion, let me ask you this question. Again, these are the segue things that we love to do here. Which fight that you've seen or heard of, the outcome was the most surprising? Good or bad, right or wrong, that you went, wow, I didn't see this coming. Or
Well, well, there were two. I really thought Lomachenko would beat Lopez. I was pretty stunned, but not totally shocked. The one that had me like this, Frank, was when Josh Warrington got knocked out.
Yeah.
I did not see that. I had my headline, I will admit it. I did not see that, but when he got wobbled in the first round, that was the first time my mouth went. And then my mind started, you watching it enough of, oh, he kept getting hit over and over again. So upsets in boxing, they do happen. I mean, just a few weeks ago, this guy Tennyson from England got knocked out in the first round by a guy that was a 30 or 20-1 underdog. And and then there was another one too that is escaping my memory, another guy that got knocked out. But the Warrington one, at least for 2021, I'll stick with this year. That was the big upset of the year that I didn't see coming. We always talk about Douglas and Tyson. We always talk about there's always going back, you look at things and go, well, why didn't I see that one coming or whatever? I saw the flaws, but I didn't think anyone could exploit it. I remember being surprised. We were talking about Hagler and Hearns. I mean, and the thing that was really cool about that, you're right, Frank, is all those guys were middleweights, so that was pretty amazing. Those four fighters were all middleweights. I didn't think Hearns was going to Hagler was going to knock Hearns out in 3 rounds. I mean, we all talk about what a great fight it was, but who predicted that?
No.
So that was kind of a right.
Close, yeah.
Exactly. So that was one of those. But I'm sure there are others. I didn't see Davis knocking out Santa Cruz like that in the 6th round. Santa Cruz had never even really been knocked down in his whole career and get knocked out. I didn't see that. And I know there's one on the tip of my tongue that was an upset pretty recently that I'm not remembering because I'm old, but the boxing ones, they're usually very dramatic and you don't see them, you like some of the fights real fast, like some of them. I remember when Canelo, back in for a second, fought Daniel Jacobs. I thought, Daniel Jacobs got a chance, and if a good chance, he's a good fighter, but he didn't do enough and he lost. Right. So if he had won, I wouldn't have or even got a draw because he almost beat Triple G. I wouldn't have been surprised. But then the best example I got for you is, of course, back to Warrington, because that was just a warm-up fight for Warrington. That wasn't thought of any. That was a workout. So yeah, great stuff.
I go back in time. I have 2 of them, and I'm going to use this. I'm going to qualify it this way: what we knew going into the fight, and what we've seen after the fight. Okay, so the Buster Douglas one, yes, that's fascinating. But then once we see what became of Mike Tyson afterwards, and then we learned of what Mike Tyson was going through before that, maybe not so surprising. Still surprising by the odds and all that, but maybe not as ridiculously upsetting as we initially thought it was. The one, and it's an Ali fight, but it's not Ali listed. Because maybe we thought that Ali had no chance going into that fight, but then after the fight, he becomes Muhammad Ali. Cassius Clay becomes Muhammad Ali. So that one, now looking back in retrospect, no. The one that is the most bizarre to me is the Ali losing in Leon's face. because Ali has a track record into that, and then he gets the title back and still retains the title after that. So that was an outlier. The Spinks came out of nowhere, and Leon Spinks' career after that was kind of so-so anyway. So there's that one. And then, and whether it's a loss or not, that remains to be seen, Manny Pacquiao and Jeff Horn is one of those, let's go to Australia for a nice, easy paycheck. I'm getting roughed up. I mean, I remember watching the decision and thinking, okay, now let's forget where it was and home cooking and all that stuff and everything. And just by the fight and the adage that in order to beat the champ, you've got to beat the champ, right? That's, and it's not just some guy, it's Manny Pacquiao. You know, it would be different if it was just some guy that had the belt for a couple of weeks and then he got beat. This is a guy that's been, you know, as we talk about, the face of boxing for more than a decade. And again, I'm not going to debate the call, but Jeff Horn, you know, he's a school teacher, he's this, he's that, he's not what. Okay, this is a fight that if you want to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and watch it in New Zealand, Australia, fine. If you don't, then don't worry about it. And at the end, they went, and now, what? Are you about to raise Jeff Horn's hand? Oh my goodness, I almost fell off the couch with, there's no way. And it threw him into the spotlight for, well, I guess you could say he's still kind of in the spotlight. But he went, but what? Huh? No. How? What? Who? No. Wow. And then I think anytime one of the Klitschko's got beat towards the tail end, because that was just, they were just so, well, and Charles will call them boring. I'm just going to call them efficient. And when someone got in the ring and you look and went, this guy's the same size. Oh, this could be interesting. Because they were usually 3 or 4 inches bigger than everybody else. And, you know, just stay on the end of my jab, and I'm just we're going to do this for 12 rounds. It's going to be over. Like, again, Duran beating Barkley. That was one of those where I'm thinking, you know, Duran was shot. And even if there's just no way. I mean, he's shot, he's fighting, you know, 7 weight classes above where he started. And Barkley has looked mean and bad. I mean, and you're fighting in a beer hall ballroom in Atlantic City. You know, it's like it's being covered on Saturday morning cartoon day. I mean, you know, it's like this is not Roberto Duran's fight. You're like, wow, he's in this. He's actually fighting. Again, I don't know that he won the fight, but yeah.
Well, I was going to say, Barkley knocking out Tommy Hearns was one of my.
Right, that's another one. Yeah, right. Yeah, and well, yeah, and there are, well, any Tommy Hearns fight. Okay, I'm going to say this, and I'm going to catch hell for it. I love watching the Tommy Hearns fight because you didn't know how it was going to come out. You knew it was going to be exciting. There was never going to be a boring Tommy Hearns fight. Let's put it that way. And nobody got knocked out better than Tommy Hearns. And that's a bad thing to say, but you know what I mean. It was like the dramatic boom and the hair flies on it. Yeah, but it was amazing to see a Tommy Hearns fight because he was so skilled. Yet there were fights where he fought with no skill.
He liked to bang, you know, and he put himself in those positions. And he only got knocked out. We got knocked out by Barkley and Leonard. He got stopped. And I'm trying to think, maybe there was another time. I don't know. It's not like it was very often, but you knew that he got hit every now and then. And he was so tall and skinny. But I was always surprised with Hearns because he had that great right hand. So I always figured he was going to win every fight. And he could box when he wanted to. He's another guy that, in a way, like we love this, Frank, is underrated because he was so versatile.
I think so, yeah. Yeah.
You know, but you're right about it seemed like he was always in exciting fights. because at some point he might get wobbled or something, and reminiscent, but Danny wasn't as good as Danny Little Red Lopez. He seemed like he always get knocked down in the first round, and then he bounced back up, and you go, uh-oh, now he's awake, and then he'd start pounding on the guy.
Off, right? Yeah,
until he fought Salvador Sanchez, who he couldn't have beat if they fought 30 times. But most of the times he came back. And I hear you, but Tommy was just damn good. I mean, he was almost impossible to beat. So when he did lose, like, that's why the Barkley, I thought Sugar Ray and Hagler were the only two guys that would ever beat him, until he got too old that he would lose because he was so old. But when he lost to Barkley, because Barkley, guts, ton of guts, but skill, right?
Not so much, yeah.
So he just got caught, and he couldn't get up. It was just a wicked shot, and that was one thing Barkley could do, was punch. So and
it's funny because I'm going to contradict some of the shows we're going to do in the future. So if you hear this part, ignore it, because we're going to do shows in the future. But that's the hard part of saying blah 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 from 1985 versus blah 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 in 1965. The hard part to determine is, what are they going to bring that we don't know about? The thing about Barkley is, you wouldn't have put him in that, wow, he's got a nice style. Or let's go to Rocky Marciano. Okay, well, there's no way he can stand up against Lennox Lewis. There's no way let's see what happens when it actually happens. Because that's what we're saying. There's no way he could possibly get away with what he did against these guys. Put him in against Joe Frazier, against Foreman, he's going to get crushed. Yeah, he doesn't know that. Nope. He doesn't think that. He doesn't believe that. And that goes a long way. And that's the thing that I think we try and we oversimplify. We don't, again, it's a sport. We don't take into consideration there's more to it than just what's tangible. The intangibles are so great in the sport, but they're so in your face. You look at, and that's why I think one of the most bizarre things is the Duran just saying, I don't want to fight Leonard anymore. Because he hadn't shown that before. Really, I don't think he showed it after that. And that's the slap in the face to a boxer to go, I give up. I just don't want to, I'm walking away. Now you can say that upset stomach and all that. I don't know what happened, but unless he threw up 17 times in the locker room, and he threw up another 15 times from the ring on the way out, and needed his stomach pumped, there's no way to me that is the explanation. That's nothing for Roberto Duran, because I've had an upset stomach and I've had a sprained ankle. I haven't been punched in the face too many times. I've been elbowed in the nose playing basketball, and that's far much worse than an upset stomach.
Yes.
Yes. So an upset stomach, and again, I don't know how upset it was, but unless he just, that doesn't stop Roberto Duran.
No, I never bought that, Frank. And see, I thought of something, you mentioned this earlier, with boxing and quitting, allegedly quitting or whatever. There are levels, obviously. When Sonny Liston, in the first fight, he had a hurt shoulder, right? And this is the toughest, meanest, scariest guy on the planet. And excuse me, he actually stops fighting because his shoulder's hurting. I mean, he never lived that down. He never stopped hearing about that. And was he really that, his arms hanging to the side where they show it? Was he hurt? Yeah. But he wasn't supposed to be like Duran. There was no way he would ever quit. That was the thinking. But then this is how I tie this is, it's a lot of it's between the ears, and I think like Duran, Sonny Liston was getting very frustrated because he couldn't hurt him. And he said afterwards, and he said afterwards, I didn't realize he was so big. I mean, he's like, right. You've been standing around the guy for a couple of months. You didn't know that he was, but in the ring, standing there right across from him and giving him the best jail stare that he could, where he didn't even blink. And now he's just looking at him, or Cassius Clay then. So there you go. That's where boxing is, where you got to be so strong here. People forget that, you know, in the brain, to be able to sustain or ignore or whatever you're doing. So that one will always be a shocker to me, that no one ever really knows how bad his shoulder was hurt. It was hurt. That's legit, because he even had a bad shoulder in training camp. But again, when the heavyweight champion is not supposed to quit on his stool, and I think that's what he's like. Paul Bunyan, you know, Paul Bunyan doesn't go, oh, my shoulder hurts, I'm not going to be doing the axe thing, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's
throw in blue, I can't go anymore. But
yeah,
and the thing about it, if he hadn't been getting dominated,
last few rounds he was, it's
dominated. He was getting dominated. Well, he was never in that fight, and there was no way in that particular night. If you're watching that fight, that particular night, there was nothing he could do. He had no answers, and I'm not even sure he knew what the questions were. There was nothing he could have done in that fight. And again, I'm trying to jump inside somebody's head, which I'm not qualified to do. I was thinking, I can't win. I came in here expecting to just kill this punk, this smaller man.
2 rounds.
Just blow him away. Yeah. And I don't have an answer. And I'm not
and Frank, real fast, I think really what demoralized him the most is when Cassius Clay then was blinded in a sense, and he went after him and he still couldn't really hit him.
Right.
I think that was where you're talking about, again, you did your segue again, where you're like, I can't beat this guy. He's half blind and I can't beat him. What does that say?
Yeah. It's and I hate to bring this up because it sounds like I'm disparaging a lot of things, but it's when I'm yelling at Lennox Lewis, he's crying in the middle of the ring. Why can't you hit him? You know, and it's like, but the Cassius Clay listening is like, yeah, he's blind and he's still avoiding me and he's still hitting me. How is that possible?
Yeah.
You know, I don't. And then when the blindness went away the next round, like, there's no way. There's nothing I can do, and my shoulder hurts. And this is again, you know, the segue to all sports is that when they mention, and this is the Dick Vitale thing, Uncle Mo, and all the momentum thing, which makes absolutely no sense at all unless you play the sport. When you're getting beat or you're achieving, and again, it's I'll go to that Atlanta Falcons New England Patriots Super Bowl. Atlanta's won the game at halftime. They've got the momentum. The worst thing that happened is halftime. Or even a better example, for all my friends back in Ohio, the Cleveland Indians Chicago Cubs final World Series game.
Whoops. Sorry, Frank.
Yeah, I know. No rain delay, championship in Cleveland. I say that to this day. If there's no rain delay, Cleveland wins that championship hands down. That's it.
Yeah, no, I can't disagree with you. Yeah.
Now, again, that speculation will never be proven. No rain delay, they win. Rain delay, and it takes a little bit of that, whatever. Chicago's now got a little more belief, or let's give it a try, blah, 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 blah. You know, and again, there's no empirical evidence to state that that's actually going to happen. But to me, that's it. No rain delay, they win. So momentum can change. And if you don't think you got a chance, you don't have a chance. So I go through it. Again, I'm not saying Sonny Liston quit. I mean, quit, but I'm not saying, but like you said, after I have the best chance I have to win this fight, and I still can't touch him, screw it, I'm not.
Yeah, and that would be Sonny, and I again, we don't really like to disparage people other than maybe Bob Arum and DAZN and all that, but that would reflects on Sonny Liston's character, because you know there are some guys that say I could lose every round and I won't quit, and that's true. And then there's a guy like him, you know, he hadn't lost a fight in 8 years. He's dominating everybody. He's knocking Floyd Patterson out in less than a round. This kid isn't going to be nothing. How hard did he really train? He He trained a little. So when the going got
Oh,
tough,
that's true. Yeah.
right? When the going got tough, he got going. So as far as going away, getting out of there like that, I mean, I think he could have taken the punishment, but I think it was more here. He was like, you know what, I'm not doing this no more. I'm not gonna do this. I'm so frustrated. It's like a little kid losing a game of marbles or whatever and taking his marbles and going home. It's basically like that. Like, that's it. I'm not doing this. Forget it.
I use that for. I'm taking my marbles and I'm going home. Right.
That's exactly the way I equate it. Yeah.
My college roommate, one of my best friends ever. I love the guy, but if he was losing at something, an old Atari game or whatever, it's like just yank the cords right out of the TV, and like, what happened? Oh, accident, or Monopoly or Risk. Risk was the best. We play a game of Risk, and it's like, okay, this is captured, that's captured, and all of a sudden, like, oh, geez, and the whole board goes flying, pieces all over the place. Like, oh, sorry about that. Yeah, because he couldn't deal with that. Now, he was a great winner. Don't get me wrong. He was gracious when he won and everything, but he just, in certain instances, he just didn't like to lose. That's how competitive he was. It's not a knock on the guy. That's just how competitive, because he's a great guy, one of the best people I'll ever know in my life. I told, but it's just that there were times where it just went. I know. It snapped in overdrive.
Yeah, I think I might have done something similar to that when I was younger a few times too, when I was playing a board game, and it was right there. I just somehow my right hand managed to flip the board upside down. So it was just, I don't know how it happened. My right hand I got hit with something. Oops. My right hand would boop. When I played golf. When I played golf, I would occasionally throw clubs when I got frustrated with myself, and I was frustrated more with myself than anything else in the game. But when you're really competitive, it can be hard. But I know exactly what you mean. But I would never quit, though. See, and that goes, at least I don't think. But of course, that's going to boxing again, and that's a totally different, totally different thing. Well, board game and boxing, not the same thing.
Yeah, it's kind of quitting, but it's not quitting, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I would go, all right, this course is kicking my butt, so I'm just going to lose every golf ball I have in the bag. That's it. Like, okay, I'm out of golf balls. I got to go back to the clubhouse and get some. You know what? I'm just going to sit in the car and wait for you guys, because I'm done. And it's like, how do you come back from 132 and you still got 5 holes left to play? It's like, I'm done. It's not like I'm going to get any better in the next couple hours. So, where's the clubhouse at? So I understand that. I understand that. And by the way, Tony was there with me for that one. He was with that one. So he saw me be a poor loser as well. So, but it's the idea of, how does that work? Okay, now, and there's no segue here. We're just going to jump to the next part as we close the show out. What do we have happening in the next few weeks, months, whatever, that as we're getting people coming back, venues are going to expand more, all that stuff, as we can hope that COVID's on the run. Where are we at where we're going to say this is an event and we're getting more stuff? Oh, no, I'll tell you what, let's change that. Here's the question. As we come out of COVID, what has boxing done, and are they in the last year to make this better for boxing fans to come out? Because we talked about back at about this time last year of what we need to see from boxing. Now, I don't want to go back to the checklist, but what have they done to make boxing better for the future in general?
Not a hell of a lot, Frank. I mean, the thing they did that impressed us, because they listened to us, was last year we said, let's come back with somewhat of a bang, and Top Rank, and we're very critical of Bob Arum, but this time he did well, even though there wasn't a crowd. Didn't matter. It was so nice to see it back. He gets all the credit for that. So in a sense, he probably helped his company, and it might have helped boxing a little. I know the ratings were good. So that's good. In the big picture, though, the big, it's always the same thing with boxing. Boxing is driven by the big fights. That's what they need. And the fact that Fury and Joshua still haven't officially signed whatever they've signed. Eddie Hearn is going nuts and complaining to the journalists, asking him the question. He said, I've answered this question 22 times. Well, Eddie, it's because there's nothing ever official. That's why you keep getting asked. So stop complaining, you know? And when you got it set, that's the kind of stuff that boxing does. It drives me absolutely nuts, because now would be the time, like we said then, now would be the time people have missed it. So you come back with a bang. Now they did in a way. We had Lopez Lomachenko during the pandemic, Frank.
Yes,
we had Canelo a few times. So they have done some things, but there's never going to be like a bottom to the top with boxing. If anything, it'll be like a little bit like this. And I, being the optimist that I am, I'm going to say that they did that, but I'm disappointed that they don't have the Fury Joshua fight signed, sealed, and delivered. I don't want it to be in Saudi Arabia. That fight should be at Wembley Stadium.
Yes.
And whatever your reasons, and I'm sure Eddie Hearn has good ones because I respect him. That is a couple of Englishmen fighting. Come on, man. It's got to be at Wembley. And you know Eddie knows this. You know he knows this.
Right.
So I don't blame him totally, but it disappoints me. Now, maybe if it's a great fight and they have a rematch, maybe that one will be at Wembley. And I say maybe, where 30 years ago there would have been no maybe. Ali Frazier fought 1, Madison Square Garden. Ali Frazier 2, Madison Square Garden. Now, they went further the third one, but the point is the rematch was back at Madison Square Garden. Here, I'm hoping it's the opposite, where Saudi Arabia 1, 2 is Wembley. So they've improved it some, but you know, we've got some good things coming up. We got Jose Luis Ramirez, like we said, and Josh Taylor. We got Devin Haney against Jorge Linares, I think, and that's May 29th. We've got, what else? We got Teofimo Lopez on the 19th, and got Floyd Mayweather and that Paul dude coming up to, I don't even know what I'm throwing in there. But Charles's guy is fighting, Shakur is fighting on the 12th. So there's a lot of good stuff. The Monster is back on the 19th, and Charlo is back on the 19th, June 19th. So we've got a lot of good, and then we've got the freakish stuff, like Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. against Anderson Silva. So, and then in July, we've got Oscar De La Hoya supposedly coming back against you, Frank. So, you know, we've got all these. This is typical boxing where you got these, like I said, you got these high things, and then you got these things where you go. So back to your question real fast. Yes, I think they have improved it some, but have they done it enough, in my opinion, to grab a big hole of fans? No.
Well, and I'm going to take my pen and take De La Hoya's pen, and we're going to pen fight, because that's about as much sense as that makes. You know, and you're right, they haven't done enough, but they did something. I've got two things to kind of build on what you said, and then we'll get out of here. The Fury Joshua fight, that should be in the heart of London. And I think the thing that we've done, and this is the TV aspect of things, we had fight week here in Vegas. It was a big fight. It was a fight, you know, the weigh-in was on Friday. People got here on Thursday. They flittered around Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon. They went to the fight Saturday. They filtered out of town Sunday, sometimes here till Monday. It was an event. Now, granted, Vegas is a whole different city compared to most places, so you can make an event of it. But I'm trying to figure out, and not that there aren't casinos and all that stuff in Saudi Arabia, or whatever you want to Saudi Arabia. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out what that event is going to be. Who's attending? Because if I'm some guy, and granted, if it's an O2, I'm priced out of that too. If I'm some guy that's, you know, coming in from Liverpool, I get that. But I can still filter into town and enjoy the party. I'm not going to Saudi Arabia for the party. I think that's even a conundrum to even try and say. So what am I there for? And I either am going to the fight and then getting on a plane and going home, or something. I can't figure out It's a cash grab. I'm trying to avoid saying that. That's what it is. It's a cash grab. Okay. If we are going to be out of the pandemic by then, which hopefully we are, and you can always reschedule for later. If it's going to be why isn't that at O2? Someplace else where if you're in London, you would be able to make an event of it. Again, we talk about Madison Square Garden, where you've got Madison Square Garden, Barclays, it could be at Citi Field, whatever. You have 3 or 4 or 5 venues in New York. In London, you got about 18 places where you can put this thing. And not only this thing, but you could have a Warrington rematch. You can have this guy. You can have that guy. You can go into 5 or 6 different venues and make it a whole weekend or a whole week if you wanted to. You could have 5 fights in 5 different venues as showcase fights in a matter of 3 or 4 days. Which, again, I don't know the logistics of that, but I think that would be something that you could really do, capitalize on that. Kind of like the Olympics of boxing, or whatever. That's another story entirely. But I don't, again, the people of Saudi Arabia deserve a fight. Sure, I'm not saying they don't. I'm just saying that to me, it's a blatant cash grab. Second thing that I think that they've done well that they weren't doing recently after this pandemic or coming out of it is we saw this with Fox, and they've done it quite a bit, is that even though it's a pay-per-view fight, you're still saying, and here's the tasty morsel leading up to it, here is the undercard on broadcast TV. And maybe that's to entice you to go to the pay-per-view. But it's also, we're giving you something, because what we've talked about was we don't see the undercards anymore. We don't get to latch on to a new guy. So in an undercard, maybe 10% of the guys become champion down the road, but now we're invested in them. And I think what they've tried to do, at least Fox has done, and ESPN's done a pretty good job of it too. Let's see what's leading up to the fight. And I think because you don't have a bunch of crap in between and the venue and all that stuff, it's like fight, knockout, fight, boom, main event. So they've capitalized on that they can put together 5 fights in a row and then show the main event, where maybe it was too difficult to do that when it was people in the stands, people arriving late, media throng, all this stuff. Maybe it just was logistically harder to do than it is now. I don't know. But it seems like they made a better effort to say, we're going to show you more boxing than we showed you in the past. So that's, I think, a good thing.
Kind of springboarding off that a little, DAZN did something, I believe, different than they might have did in the past, but I can't recall it, is they had the undercard fights on YouTube free. And then if you wanted to buy it, it was a pay-per-view for Canelo. So maybe, and Saunders. So maybe that was pretty much in essence what you're saying. They wanted to see if they could show the undercard fights, and then it might entice people to buy the pay-per-view, because that's where I was watching the undercard fights, and you can see how many people are watching, and they had like 40,000 people watching these fights. And where I was moaning and groaning to myself is what we've talked about before, is they make mistakes on the undercard fights when they don't have a mouth-watering fight on the undercard fight. That's what I was thinking. And I was watching it going, okay, this is really cool. I get what you're doing. I like it. And the fights weren't terrible. But what about a real fight like a Danny Lopez and Bobby Chacon, a couple of young, undefeated guys?
Sure.
Now, maybe they tried and they couldn't get anybody to agree to it, because people are, it seems, remember, this is what last time, people are less willing to take risks now when you got your perfect record against another, right? So that was unfortunate. That was where I was, because we were on social media. I saw, wow, this is a real snoozer. And actually the fights didn't turn out to be bad. So maybe it helped a little bit. It's too bad, because then they could have advertised on YouTube about this showdown between these two. And then they could have segued right to, then we got 2 undefeated world champions going at it after in the main event. So we'll see. I mean, maybe that's the what they're going to do in the future. But I'm curious to see if it is, then we know that was considered a success.
Well, I think the marriage that they have to negotiate is diehards and not diehards. Canelo is obviously going to be a pay-per-view fight. Get that, not a problem. That's cool. And that's going to draw the people to go, I know that guy. He's brought me to boxing. I know that guy. And that's the only thing I'm watching. The people that just watch the Super Bowl for the commercials. Never figured that out, but that's okay. But there are people that would watch a Pee Wee football game between the last place of, Jackson County Silverfish. That they'll watch. Yeah.
That's you.
And give them something to see. That's me. Yeah. Oh, I stopped and watched a basketball game that was, at St. John Arena when I was on my way to work. I was late for work because I was watching fifth grade basketball team. That's or was junior hockey. Like, why are we late? There was a basketball game going on right over there. Who was? I don't know. Well, then why are you late for work? There was a basketball game going right over there.
Again.
Yeah, that's me. Yeah, it was right there. So give those people what they want. Those are the people your advertisers are going to make money off of. That's what's going to happen, because you're going to say, oh, well, gee, you guys like boxing? Yeah. Well, boxing fans like Cheez-Its and Doritos? Sure. Oh, you're going to get those people. Advertise the crap to them, and then have the pay-per-view people for other stuff. Because again, we morons are also going to buy the pay-per-view, but we're also going to watch what happens at 3 o'clock from New Zealand. So I would think if you market it more and make it more accessible to us, or at least make us more aware of it, they could make a business out of it. So I think that in a roundabout way, I think that's what they did or they're doing, but there's a long way to go.
Yeah, and I think you're right. And I think they were exploring, testing the waters, all the cliches, floating a trial balloon, whatever you want to say. And I'm glad they're doing that. And you're right. They know they're already counting that certain people are going to do this. They don't need this little teaser, but I think they're also trying to see, well, maybe we can broaden our base. And then like with DAZN, if you subscribe to DAZN, and this is another thing they kept talking about, subscribe to DAZN, you didn't have to pay the pay-per-view. Obviously, it was right on your DAZN subscription. So DAZN it's to me, people disagree, but DAZN has done a great job. I mean, they're Charles and I have ideas that they might steal someday, but they don't. But they are trying at least to broaden their canvas as far as fans go, and I like that. And it's actually very smart to go on YouTube, because that's where everything is. Look at those guys. Remember the Paul guys? They're on YouTube, right? So that is very smart to do that. So I hope it helps them, because again, it will only help boxing. Yeah.
We're on YouTube.
That's
we're
right.
YouTube over on
we
this
are
side.
on YouTube.
Yeah, we are on YouTube. So yeah, that's where you're going to find us. You can find us on the website, but that's where you're going to find it. Last segue, and to find the Ultimate Sports Network, please go to www.ultimatesportsnetwork.com or look at our YouTube page, which is Ultimate Sports Network. Thank you very much. Have a good day. But that's it. You go where the people are, and then bring the people to you. And I think that's a smart thing to do. But they're still, and I'm not going to bore the people with this, but they're still stuck with metrics analytics. They forget to deal with people.
Yeah.
And people have a tendency to do what people do, which is seek out what they want for free.
Right.
So get your advertisers to advertise to where do you make more money? Advertising to 25,000 people, or getting 75,000 people to pay $29.99 for a fight. It might be easier to do that. It might be easy for the company to do that. Just to make a pay-per-view, collect the check, and go. Or go out and solicit advertising and have the advertisers come up with interesting ads and make it so you have an event that brings in a captive audience. They don't want to leave, and maybe make the advertising less intrusive. All the things that we do on Ultimate Sports Network, by the way. And then go from there. To me,
Right.
that would be, as I've been told, that's the genius of the whole thing. That's where some people are ahead of others, and maybe too far ahead of others. But the concept of how do we get, this guy, but how do we get people to fall into that trap of it's good for everybody? Because as we've talked about, and we'll go full circle with how we started this, we do things collectively now where it's not for the good of everybody, where everyone isn't, if the advertiser makes money, if the distributor makes money, if the promoter makes money, and the fighter makes money, all the while the person watching it is entertained and isn't drained of their last $5, everybody wins.
Right.
But when there's no synergy to that, that's when we get crap. And we've had a lot of crap lately. And I don't like being involved in crap. I think there's a way where it could be a synergy for everybody to do well and still have people go, this sport is astounding. I mean, I've seen some stinker boxing matches, but I've seen a lot of great matches that are a lot better than the stinkers. 80% of them are pretty good. 5% of them, 10% of them are fantastic. I'm trying to do my math here. 10% of them are awful. Then you wonder, why did they bring this guy out here? Wasn't he delivering bread to the to the soup kitchen last week? And now he's out here. How did he get a fight? So, and sometimes that's all you can do. That's all you can match. But you can avoid that, I think, if you do it in a better way. So as we close the show, as I said 17 times already, we've gone over by about 45 minutes. Thank you once again, people, for listening. Charles should be back next week, if we're back next week. And keep your fingers crossed and hope that the internet going to still work for us. Thanks again, John. And we will call it a day.
Great.
All right.
Take care, everybody.